Hi, I'm Annika. I'm an IBCLC and I'm also a NICU nurse. And I've noticed a gap in the literature that's currently guiding maternal caffeine consumption and breastfeeding versus our guidelines of caffeine administration to babies born prematurely in the NICU. Let's break it down. Yes, you can absolutely drink coffee and breastfeed. Caffeine is indeed transferred into breast milk in very minimal amounts. We give caffeine to premature infants in the nursery because there have been incredible studies that talk about its benefits. There was a big study called the CAP study, the Caffeine on Apnea and Prematurity. And this study followed over 2,000 infants that compared a group which received caffeine in the NICU versus a group that did not. And these babies were actually followed through to the age of 11 years old. The findings were amazing. We learned that caffeine is actually neuroprotective for our premature population. This is because it treats and prevents apnea of prematurity, which increases oxygenation and ventilation by stimulating the respiratory center. We also learned that with caffeine administration to preterm babies, we had reduced incidence of cerebral palsy, reduced cognitive delay, reduced motor impairment. An article I read also discussed animal studies and caffeine's positive influence on neuroplasticity and rewiring of neural pathways, which makes me think that with the premature population, perhaps caffeine is also really beneficial in terms of neuroplasticity. So let's compare the dose that a breastfed baby would receive from 1 cup of coffee versus the dose that we actually give to a premature baby in the NICU. What I can tell you, to cut to the chase, is that the dose in breast milk is so minimal compared to what we're giving babies in the NICU. So a NICU baby is given an initial loading dose of 10 milligrams per kilo of caffeine base, which equals, let's say we have a 2.5 kilo baby, 25 milligrams of caffeine for the first dose, and then a reduced dose every day after. For a breastfed baby, for 1 cup of coffee that a breastfeeding parent would take, that caffeine concentration of 125 milligrams in a cup of coffee would actually equate to 0.4 milligrams per 100 mils. So we're talking about 1 feed at the breast having only 0.4 milligrams of caffeine from a cup of coffee. This comparison looks at 0.4 milligrams in 100 mils of breast milk of caffeine from 1 cup of coffee versus a premature baby in the NICU receiving 25 milligrams for the first dose with subsequent doses daily. I suppose with this information, I really question to what extent are we worried about insomnia in breastfed babies or irritable behaviour caused by a cup of coffee? It doesn't really make sense. There have been some studies looking at chronic caffeine consumption and breastfed babies. So between 10 and 20 cups of coffee will actually result in quite high levels of caffeine in the bloodstream. And that is an unusually high amount of caffeine to be consuming. And those breastfeeding parents that were having that much coffee were also drinking soda and soft drinks that contained caffeine. But there is actually studies as well that talk about up to 5 cups of coffee having no impact on baby behaviour. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends 300 milligrams or less of caffeine consumption per day. Caffeine is a really personal stimulant to actually be taking. Some people, it gives them anxiety, they don't really like the way it makes them feel, or it may impact on their own sleep. And if you have a baby that's not sleeping, we really don't want our own sleep to be impacted by this. But if you're like me and you love drinking coffee, then please know that it's very unlikely to impact on your baby. Thanks for taking the time to listen. I hope that you learned something new, and if anyone is questioning this information or would like more or wants to read some of the research that I have talked about, then please reach out.